Hey everyone, it's David here. I've actually done 2 other videos that I didn't post, and then I thought, they're not really interesting. Not that I know that this will be interesting either, but I've been officially on my testosterone patches for a week, and a part of me was hoping, to grow hair overnight, even though I know it's physically impossible. But I have actually noticed a difference psychologically. There's not a lot of words to describe it. I would say feeling stronger, but it's not strong like, punch people in the face kind of stronger. It's sort of, if for example, if you're familiar with the concept of spoon theory with chronic illness, it's kind of like I've got more emotional spoons, so that when things happen that are annoying or a bit frightening, I've got sort of more resources to sort of counter it, to not freak out or not have a panic attack, or less things seem to freak me out, which is a surprising sort of thing. I feel a little calmer in myself. I'm not obsessively controlling as much as I can. I'm just sort of chilling out a lot more. So that's a bonus. All of the doctors and all of the the websites that talk about all the stuff that happens when you go on testosterone and blah blah, they all say that there won't be too much noticeable difference, really, for about a year. And I'm actually starting on a really low dose because my mental health with PTSD and everything is such that if I get a hormonal shift and it brings me right down, I could end up in A&E. So they're going really, really slowly, so I'm on this ridiculously low dose, so maybe more things will change later. But I've been sort of randomly grinning like an idiot all week, because, for example, all of the correspondence that I'm getting from the gender services people are all in the right gender. They sent a letter to my counsellor to just make sure that she knows and that this is going on and that it might affect my mental health, blah blah blah. And they changed to male pronouns without even being asked to, and it's still a little bit new and a little tiny bit sort of jarring, because I think, wow, the world's actually listening, holy crap. But every time I see it, I sort of grin. It's kind of, I feel like I'm being silly, but the grown-up part of me says I'm not being silly, that I'm allowed to be excited, and this is the reason why it's sort of supporting why it's a good idea that I've started it this way, and doing this. So everything's sort of new and shiny and exciting, and I'm hopeful, and it's still a little bit awkward socially, face to face, because I'm sort of, what's the word, I'm always sort of a little bit cautious, because I know that bigots hide behind nice smiley faces, and sometimes the nicest people can be bigots about certain issues, and you don't know where people sit, and I don't want to say, oh, my name's David, to someone I don't know, and there are some names you can choose that are gender neutral, or can be used both ways. So there's sort of, by telling them my name is David, and David being a very male name, like 6,000 years of male name, it's sort of, I have to keep coming out just by introducing myself, and it's just a little bit nerve-wracking, and I just sort of have this moment of panic, and I think, should I, shouldn't I, should I? And then my brain goes, well, actually, you're going to have to eventually anyway. So I've been trying to do that. And I'd totally forgotten that I'm going to need a new signature for everything. I'm going to have to tell my home carer person, because eventually she's going to notice. So there's all this sort of reality checks happening, and it's a little bit sort of scary and a little bit overwhelming, but it's also really exciting, you know. I felt stuck for so long, and now it's sort of progressing, not as fast as I want, but enough, and I'm just sort of excited and scared all at once. It's been quite wonderful, and it's only a week. No idea what it's going to be like in a year, but I'm so far happy with what's going on, so it's good. And to make my update interesting, I thought I might talk about some of the issues that I put into TSU to do with supporting different, you know, gender and sexuality diverse populations. I actually built TSU under the assumption that they'd already done all the social, what's the word, revolution? I don't know. Transformation is probably a less violence-inferring term. So that for them, in their universe, you love who you love. There's no word like heterosexual or homosexual or bisexual or pan or sapiosexual. I think there's like so many names for the descriptions of sexuality, but they don't have those names because you just love who you love. Who cares, you know? And so I had to create that in the story, and then I realised when all your characters are sort of it's just normal, there's no word for it. There's no way of describing it, there's no way of talking about it. You can just sort of just gently infer. I had a similar problem. I've got one character in book 3, Sarai Abbott, she's deliberately been created to be a bigger person. She's a ninja because she's actually a kinetic as well, and fit as hell, but she's also not skinny. And I couldn't figure out a way of like describing her situation. How do you describe a body that we would call fat in a way that isn't an insult? You know, our culture is so obsessed with labels and whether those labels are good or bad, and I couldn't describe her. I mean, I think the best word was well-fed that I could figure out to describe her. I'm going to have to be really loud if, you know, we get fans who want to roleplay her or whatever, or cosplay her. But I come across this problem repeatedly in the creation of the TSU universe, because I'm trying to make everything sort of, all of the things that are huge and discriminatory in our world, into non-events in TSU. But when you discriminate, you actually label, so that then you can then talk about it. So, but in a universe where that just isn't a thing, any labels there used to be are long gone, long dead. So like, gender and sex are completely separate in the outer and species. So I deliberately made different names. So like, so I split it up. So we used the more familiar gender names of male, female and androgen for the 3 genders. But they've got 3 sexes, and I've used different words, Akan, Asana and Adan, for the sexes, because they don't view them as the same thing. But that means, like, for example, Hawk, he's a hermaphrodite, which is a Dan, or heron, sex, which is both sets of bits, but his gender identity is male. And so, by our terms, you know, if we had 3 sexes, he'd be transgender, but because he's not, the moment he was a small person and he declared himself to be a boy, they didn't make an issue of it. He was a boy, because, you know, in that universe you declare who you are. Your identity is entirely yours to define. And so there's no word for transgender or cisgender, you just you, if that makes sense. And so I had this constant problem of all of these things that I tried to, like, I don't know, fix about our world and put it into TSU, fixed and already not an issue, and then there's no language to describe it, no way of pointing it out. I mean, like Lalan, she's one of the RA survivors. RA is the Rona Ban, who are the sort of bad guys in Rona. And she's either a hermaphrodite or has a penis. I don't want to use the normal, well, the terms that we would use, because then it kind of kills the whole intention of TSU being, you know, a non-event in the gender department. And I haven't been able to figure out how to write into it that she's not, her gender and sex don't match in the way that we would say matching is. And then of course I catch myself and realise that perhaps there's internalized transphobia, because I'm wanting to make the effort to describe and point it out, and then there's sort of no way of resolving the issue. It's really fascinating, but I've been trying really hard to create TSU in a way so that gender and sex are completely separate, and sexuality is a non-event. You just love who you love, and they're also open to polygamy, the version that means multiple partners but not necessarily one male and lots of females. It's actually traditionally their relationships were in threes because they had three sexes, and so even like couples aren't entirely normal, if you will, in their universe. But like there's a story, I haven't actually finished rewriting that part yet, in what was called Journa's Notebook, which I think I'm calling TSU Histories now, where there's like 4 or 5 people who are together, but I couldn't figure out a way of writing it in such a way that people would notice, you know, readers would notice, because they're just together, they just love each other, you know. And so in a world where all of the things that we find to be noteworthy is not are not noteworthy in theirs, and so there's no real words for things. People don't care, you just are what you are, love who you love, and love how you love, as long as, you know, it's sort of safe and involves consenting adults. But the other thing is they also don't have a lot of sexual trauma. The people that actually do the sexual trauma are the really, really bad guys, like the Spades gangsters and stuff, and they're not gender specific because in their universe women aren't for sex, if you know what I mean. You know, they don't have the misogyny and the patriarchy that we have. And it's really quite challenging to sort of create all of these things, and exciting as well, and then try and figure out how to talk about them in the story when they're not a thing. Like, women aren't forced to wear makeup or wear pretty shoes or clothes that are too small or show off cleavage or whatever because their bodies aren't sexualized. No one's bodies are sexualized. But it's such a fascinating sort of way of trying to get it into the universe while also trying to bring up the actual subject in the manuscript, in the story, for other people to think about without terms to describe it with. I had the same problem with race, actually, because other than children of mixed race, which is a totally religious, there's actually a thematic reason which we'll have to get back to at the end of the series for what it is, but in every other context they're not racist. Like, there isn't one race or two races that are superior, or one race that's considered to be smaller, or there's none of that superiority crap. And so, like, Jaola, I found it really hard in Time Speaker to talk about the fact that she's brown. She's like not white, and and there's no way of talking about it because the word is Tolan, which is the name of the country where the people that look like her are. But because she's technically a Ranan, you can't say that, and also a reader that's new to the universe won't know what Tolan means, or Kranan, or Ronin, or Basan. They won't know what those words mean. So it's been so funny to try and create these things and just talk about them in a universe that it's not an event, it's not a thing. People don't give a shit. They don't care. It's really fascinating, and I've been trying to build cosplay concepts around, instead of pegging someone's gender based on like the shape of their body, it's actually their clothes, because then that's in control of the person who's wearing the clothes. But I'm constantly countering my own programming in the process. It's been quite joyously challenging, actually, because I catch myself and I think, ooh, that piece of program, I need to figure out how to get that out of there. But I want to create a universe where everyone has a place, has a place where they can belong if they want to, so that in this universe we would call, in here and now, in human universe, we'd call like a person a trans woman when they would just be a woman. There would be no discernment because of genitalia. So that means a person can just walk into TSU and just be themselves, and they don't have to talk about shit. They don't have to justify themselves, because society doesn't really give a shit, Oh, okay, so your genitalia doesn't match the 5,000-year-old definitions of gender. Whipty shit. And it's been it's quite a process to try and have a vision of a universe, of a world that has a culture that's totally different from our own, when you're creating it from that said screwed up universe. And I'm talking about our current universe filled with bigotry and hatred and fucking real Nazis walking down the street and all that kind of weird stuff. Still blows me away, that one. It's weird. Scary world. But if I can make the vision of a world without all that crap, where people can just live as they are and be who they are without worrying about being murdered for that. I mean, you get murdered because you're a psychic, but, you can't have everything. If I can create that vision, if I can start that vision, and then spread it through the story, then we might be able to have a future, before I'm dead anyway, where that same lack of giving a shit about what things are, or normal, or, that hatred of diversity, if we can get enough people with that vision in their minds, with enough people wrapping their heads around the idea of a world where gender and sexuality and sex are all very different things, and there's nothing, that sort of discrimination doesn't exist, then maybe we can spread it here. We can have a better world where people don't get killed for being not good enough, not normal enough, or whatever. Actually, I still don't understand why people think they can kill people just because they're different. It's weird. If we can do that, we can make this world a better one. At least that's my vision. And part of that vision is, of course, my own journey. I've got to create my own world for myself as well as for others. Or at least those who want to join in. Anyway, it's coming up to 20 minutes. I think that's long enough for me talking. Hopefully soon enough I can do a more interesting update. until then, I hope everyone has a great Christmas time and holiday time and whatever holy times that you have, or solstices or whatever, or just, you know, chill out with family's time if you're completely secular. I hope everyone has a good time of it, of the silly season. See you later.